I wanted to talk about a situation that's going on. It's really, really new. You may have not even heard about it or been aware of it yet. The escaped inmate and the manhunt for that inmate. He escaped Wednesday. Okay, now this is happening in Idaho, and he actually just got caught. Saw the article 7 minutes ago. He just got caught today, Thursday. But here's the thing, I got some insight to give on this because the way he escaped, how he went about orchestrating this is just something I've heard and seen all too often during my 10 years in prison. First of all, this guy, Skylar Mead, this is the escaped inmate. He wasn't supposed to get out until 2036. He was arrested in 2016, I believe, and it was for aggravated battery on a police officer with a weapon. So he's got no problem battering cops, as you'll see here in a second when I explain what happened. But here's the thing. He didn't escape from the Idaho prison. He escaped from the local hospital. And since he's a white supremacist, he's in a white supremacist gang. They're called the Aryan Knights. Apparently, they're very plentiful out there. They have all type of on the outside of prison, they have all these white supremacist base camps for members and all this stuff. And so they really orchestrated a brutal and violent, well-planned escape. Now, he escaped from the hospital. He had two corrections officers who were unarmed guarding him, and then a third who had a weapon. So he was armed. So they got three corrections officers here. He got Skylar Mead, the inmate, got one of his brothers, his white supremacist brothers, who is not in prison. He's free. He's out here in the world. He got him to show up to the hospital with a gun and open fire on these corrections officers. So it gets hectic real quick. He shoots two of these guards, the unarmed guards, and the third guard he doesn't shoot, but the third guard still gets shot by a police officer. And a police officer ran into the building, and the police officer says he first thought this was like an active shooter situation. He didn't know exactly what was going on. He just ran in to kind of like check on the safety of all the patients and people inside this hospital. And he just saw an armed person in the hospital, which was the guard. And so he was like, oh, and opened fire and shot the guard. All three lived. All three guards lived. But this white supremacist brother got Skylar Mead out of that hospital and helped him escape. Now, they have been caught. Both of them are charged. So now this idiot who helped him escape, who wasn't even in prison, now he is probably done for life, or might as well be for life, the better part of his life. But I really wanted to talk about this because when I first saw this, all I saw was inmate escaped, and then I realized, oh, he escaped from the hospital, and I'm like, that reminds me of an old classic tactic, an old trick inmates always used to do or talk about doing or try. It's kind of that old, like, when an inmate thinks about escaping, it's kind of one of the first old cliche. It almost becomes like a cliche amongst the other inmates of how you're going to do it, right? The first idea that comes to your mind. And so he says he escaped. And so they said he escaped from the hospital. And I'm like, I wonder if that's how he did this. It confirmed it even more when I read in an article that he had been in the hospital in the first place for self-inflicted injuries, self-harming behavior. All right. So he harmed himself. He hurt himself somehow. So they had to take him to the hospital. This is so common. Inmates, and even in the county jail, not even prison, inmates who knew that they were facing something that they probably wouldn't beat or were going to get a lot of time for. They were pretty much cooked toast. There's way too much evidence stacked against them, and they would want to escape. They would always either talk about or even sometimes do swallow a battery. They would swallow a battery that you can buy on the canteen because you can buy these little AM, FM radios to listen to music and stuff, these cheap little things. But so they sell AAA batteries. They would always talk about or actually swallow a battery. Sometimes it would be a razor blade. And this would be on razor night. When you get a razor, or in prison, you can just buy razors. to shave with, and kind of there's a way to crack those open and just pull that blade off, and they would swallow that. And so they would do that so that they would have to be taken to the hospital to get their stomach pumped. And then once they get to the hospital, they would try to escape. Either that or that was their plan. So it's just, I just wanted to put this out there. It's actually one of the first things that comes to inmates' minds when they think, how do I want to escape? Or what would be a good way? Or how am I going to do this here? So this guy who was free, who came in shooting at the officers, the guards, now he's charged with aggravated battery on officers, on law enforcement, as well as aiding and abetting in an escape. And they say that there's actually a history of these two, not only, tied together on the outside, just from being in the area nights, but at some point in the past, these guys, when his buddy was locked up, they actually shared a housing unit while they were both incarcerated. So these guys are pretty close. Obviously, this guy just threw his whole life away to come get his buddy out, and they didn't last 24 hours. And now they're both screwed. They also say that they're investigating that these two guys might be the suspects for 2 deaths, 2 homicides that happened. Now, they didn't give enough detail on this for me to be sure, but I think they mean like this happened while, I don't know if they're saying they may have committed these murders while they were on the run, while this manhunt for these 2 guys was going on. And for whatever reason, in some completely separate incident, maybe a carjacking, maybe, who knows, while these guys are on the run, 2 homicides occurred. But they can't say for sure, but they're investigating that. So might have to keep an eye on that and see what happens there. But there's your video. Just wanted to talk about this situation and throw that out there. Thanks for watching. See you next time.